What is the deal, beautiful people? My name is Ramon. Welcome to the channel. Here we talk about any and everything photography. Today's topic happens to be one of my favorites. Is Micro Four Thirds still relevant?
1, 2, get down.
Well then, there are a few different perspectives I would like to investigate to get to what I think is a decent answer to this question. Number one is photography. Is Micro Four Thirds relevant for photography? The short answer, in my humble opinion, is yes. Number one is the megapixel count. And this is really what I would consider the low-hanging fruit. And this is often what people talk about when they're asked about Micro Four Thirds and why they do or don't, think it's a good system or capable system or relevant. Starting at 12 megapixels, moving up to 16. I think some of the newer ones are actually 24 megapixels. And yeah, this conversation about sensor size is one that I really don't enjoy having. I think it's quite silly, to be honest. But yeah, in today's world, 16 to 24 megapixels is more than enough. And really, the megapixel count isn't the entire story. It never is the entire story. And I mean, we live in a world where Sony releases a Sony A7S whatever, and it's relatively low megapixel count. And I think everyone sort of runs to the aid of those line of cameras by saying, yes, but it's better at low light. And it's like, well, there's an acceptance that a low megapixel count on a sensor isn't a death sentence, And then there's also the conversation about IBIS in the photography world. Even today, I think Fuji is a great example of this. I think Fuji is kind of the only one that doesn't have IBIS across the entire line. But I guess these days all cameras have IBIS, and it's less of a conversation. But I do urge you to remember that 5-6 years ago, when cameras, a lot of the camera manufacturers were not enabling IBIS, Micro Four Thirds had IBIS, and not only did they have IBIS, they had the best iteration of it. It was leagues ahead of what everyone else had, and I think it had a lot to do with the sensor size. It was a lot easier and a lot more beneficial that the sensor was so small that the mechanics that were used to stabilize it were more effective, more efficient, right? That's just my personal opinion on that. Yeah, but from a photography standpoint, yes, the IBIS is there, right? So you've got great picture quality, regardless of sensor size. I don't think that has anything to do with anything. You've got great IBIS. And then there's this one point that's outside of the technical abilities of Micro Four Thirds cameras that I think people need to understand and allow to put things in perspective. As long as we continue to marvel at what these smartphones can do in terms of the cameras, then I don't want to hear it about Micro Four Thirds. If somebody shot a billboard on an iPhone, then your Micro Four Thirds camera is more than enough. So yes, looking at it from the perspective of photography, Micro Four Thirds is definitely still relevant. Video. Is Micro Four Thirds still relevant, or some would even ask, has it ever been relevant in terms of video? And that answer is yes. If you're familiar with Panasonic and the GH4, the GH5, the GH6, although Panasonic these days have now gone towards full frame, which is interesting. I kind of wish Olympus would do the same. I'd love to see a full frame Olympus camera. However, Micro Four Thirds today is still really relevant for everything I said about photography also applies with videography, right? And then I ran across this one interesting piece. Was it DP Review or I forgot where it was, but apparently Micro Four Thirds cameras, because of the size of the sensor, allows the cameras to get full frame 4K resolution readout, which is a big deal. Today, I'm shooting on a soon to be disclosed state-of-the-art full frame Sony camera. I upgraded finally. And what I'm shooting on right now is a 14 millimeter Rokinon, but it doesn't look like 14 mil because it applied a 1.5 times crop to the 4K footage. With Micro Four Thirds, that's not the case. So that's something that needs to be understood, and it needs to be, you know, people like to run the tech race, and if you're going to run the tech and spec race, you should know this as well, right? So that's cool. And because of this again, how small the sensor is and that native 4K readout, Micro Four Thirds cameras in terms of video are less susceptible to roll in shutter, which I think is something that's very valuable to a lot of people. And then lastly, Micro Four Thirds have had a ton of video bit rates that full frame cameras didn't even have, right? And then a lot of Micro Four Third video centric solutions also had a ton of S-Log and log variations that a lot of full frame cameras didn't have. So yeah, I think not only couple that with the amazing IBIS that these cameras have, and the tiny bodies and how well and how light they are in terms and how they play with gimbals and like, yes, for video work they're amazing, and they're still like, a lot of people run those Sigma Art lenses with speed boosters that allows them to get back a lot of the depth of field when taking into consideration the 2 times crop with Micro Four Thirds and the focal length. So yes, they're very relevant, and they're very dope video tools. Looking at Micro Four Thirds from the perspective of portability, they are, quite frankly, untouchable. I urge a lot of photographers to really get to your camera store, get down to a Best Buy, wherever, to hold a Micro Four Thirds camera in your hand. They're small. They're quite small. Like, they're shockingly tiny. Not only that, but the lenses are, oh my God, some of these Olympus lenses are like tack sharp. And I often dream about finding an adapter somewhere and throwing these Olympus lenses on one of my full frame cameras to really see the results that I get. I don't know if it'll be anything special, but no, these Micro Four Thirds lenses are not only tiny, but they are amazing in terms of sharpness and performance. And to have something that capable, a camera and a lens, in your bag, in your pocket, like it's invaluable. You know, whether you're talking about travel stuff, or even if you've got your small drone, you've got your Micro Four Thirds, and you're on a hike, this is not the type of equipment that's going to make you resent or regret bringing it along. And that right there is such added value. It must be celebrated. It has to be recognized. And there's also something to be said for the functionality. A lot of Micro Four Thirds cameras, you can find dials for your specific functions, which is not something that you can find on a lot of cameras that offer the same features, and B, a lot of cameras at their physical size, right? So listen, man, for portability and functionality, yes, they're untouchable. They really are untouchable. Before I proceed, I just want to take a quick second to do some house cleaning. If you like the video, hit the like button. I really appreciate that. Watch another 2 or 3 of my videos to get a sense of what I do here and what this community is about. And if you like what you see, I would love it if you could hit that subscribe button and join the community. That'd mean a lot to me as well. But I have a question for you, and you can answer this in the comment section down below. Where do you stand on Micro Four Thirds? What are your applications? Is it photography? What type of photography? Street photography, portrait photography, product photography? They're quite good in product photography world. In fact, there's that 85 millimeter 1.8 Olympus that I've been dreaming about. Hopefully I can get to purchase it this year. You couple that lens, it comes out to roughly the focal length of 135 millimeters. But you couple that lens with the high resolution mode on my EM5, it's a match made in heaven for product photography. So yeah, hopefully I can get around to it. Maybe you're doing video. What are your thoughts on Micro Four Thirds in the video realm? Are you still using it? Curious. So yes, my point to, is Micro Four Thirds still relevant today? It stands, yes, it is. Especially at the price point that you can get these things for. But there are some caveats that you need to be aware of. And I think when having a conversation about Micro Four Thirds, the conversation skews heavy towards the caveats, which is not fair because Fuji, Sony, Canon, Nikon, they all have these glaring caveats and downsides that no one, it's always in a like, yeah, but when it comes to Micro Four Thirds, the caveat is the front runner for the conversation. I don't think that's fair. But you do need to know that support for Micro Four Thirds is dwindling, meaning the likelihood that you're going to find Tamron making a Micro Four Thirds lens is little to none. So keep that in mind. Luckily, the Panasonic and the Olympus lens kits are pretty flushed in terms of variations, and they have some really good quality stuff. But if you don't want to pay for a pro lens, or you're looking for something on a budget, you just be aware that it can be kind of scarce to find manufacturer support or third-party manufacturer support. The megapixel count, for those of you who like to tout your megapixel count as something meaningful, that doesn't exist on Micro Four Thirds. 24 megapixels is about as much as you go. So I'll make that argument that it's more than enough. And there are people out there who make an argument that 24 megapixels is absolutely not enough. And that's fine. I understand it, right? So yeah, there are some downsides to it. Olympus is kind of, I don't know where Olympus is these days in terms of a company and brand establishment. Last I saw, there was an OM camera. I think it's pretty much EM1. I don't think I've seen anything new in terms of their intermediate to amateur level, and I don't know if they'll put anything else new. Panasonic, as I mentioned earlier, went away from Micro Four Thirds, and they're in the full frame world. And I don't know. I thought I saw a rumor that they were still releasing Micro Four Thirds cameras, but to be honest, I don't expect it. And even so, seemingly Panasonic moving away from Micro Four Thirds gave them the ability to upgrade their focal system to, they got rid of phase detect. And I think everyone is, oh wait, did they get rid of, what the hell is it? Is it phase detect or contrast based autofocus? I think it's phase detect that everyone hated, but whatever. Panasonic moving to full frame now allowed them to implement a better autofocusing system, and the world went wild, and that new Panasonic is claimed by many as the best camera on the market. So yeah, Micro Four Thirds, I wouldn't say it's something to invest in in terms of the tool for your future moving forward, but I still do think it's capable. I still do think it's something to invest in, to enjoy in the now and the present, because it can do what you ask of it. And the prices are right. You can find these things for these cameras and these lenses for great prices. If nothing at all, they would make great cameras to document your life. If you don't want to stick your full frame professional grade camera in your family's face at the dinner table, Micro Four Thirds is a great look. If you don't want to do the same for video taping the kids out in the back, doing whatever the hell it is the kids out in the back do. Micro Four Thirds is great for that, right? So yeah, give it a look, and you know, curious to know where you guys land on what it is and how valuable it is these days. Yeah, if you like the video, hit that like button. My name is Ramon. I'm out of here. Peace.